Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Battle Through the Heavens based on novel. So let's start. 3 rays of light flashed over from a distant mountain peak at the border of the Chuyun Empire. A moment later, they turned into 3 human figures. In front is the Chuyun Empire. It is rumored that poison masters dominate the interior of this empire. We must be more careful when we act in the future. Xiao Yan looked at a vague fortress at the edge of his sight from a tall vantage point, before turning his head to remind Medusa and Ziyang, yes. The two of them nodded. Medusa looked at Ziyang beside her, hesitated a little, before saying, "Are you certain that you want to bring Ziyang along? This trip to the Chuyun Empire is not some tour." Ziyang's small face immediately became anxious when she heard Medusa's words. She was unwilling to remain alone in the Jioma Empire. That was so boring. Relax. Don't underestimate this little girl. She is also an expert Do Huang. Adding her frightening strange strength, she is even able to contend with ordinary experts at the peak of the Do Huang class. Moreover, when it comes to a life and death situation, it is likely that she has even better skills than the both of us when it comes to preserving her life. Xiao Yang rubbed Ziyang's head and laughed. Hearing this, Medusa also recalled that Ziyang had actually relied on her Do Wen class strength to receive a blow from Protector Wu back on the Misty Cloud Mountains. She immediately ceased saying any other things. She smiled at Ziyang and said, "In that case, you can follow. However, I will say this first. You cannot be the least bit mischievous this time around. You better not touch anything that you should not touch. Most of the experts from the Chuyun Empire carry some sort of dirty poison." Ziyang hurriedly nodded her small head when she saw that Medusa was willing to agree. "In that case, let's go." The headquarters of the poison sect is located in a city at the middle of the Chuyun Empire. There is still some distance we need to cover to get to that place. Xiao Yang laughed. Medusa faintly nodded. She immediately pulled Ziyang and the two of them swiftly rose into the air. They flew hurriedly toward the Chuyun Empire under the cover of the night sky. Xiao Yang followed behind them. The territory of the Chuyun Empire was not smaller compared to the Jioma Empire. From a certain point of view, it was even larger than the Jioma Empire. However, this empire was undoubtedly much more chaotic when compared to the Jioma Empire. The poison Do Qi was also divided into a countless number of branches, but they were still approximately the same. All of them contained a lethal poison. Of course, such an unusual poison affinity was naturally not an ordinary affinity. Instead, it was a man-made mutated product. An ordinary person would have to soak one's body within poison water and train in it before one became a doja. The poison would slowly seep into one's body and finally intertwine with the Do Qi within one's body. After a long time, the originally normal Do Qi would become a poison Do Qi that possessed different kinds of effects. Compared to ordinary Do Qi, the lethality of poison Do Qi would indeed possess some advantages. However, poison was ultimately poison. This thing did not differentiate between enemies and oneself. An increase in training would cause the body to become weaker under the corrosion of the poison. Unless one was able to advance to an expert Do Huang, an ordinary person who practiced a poison affinity Do Qi would have a much shorter lifespan compared to an ordinary person. Having various poisons mixed into one's body would also result in some people's characters deviating from the normal. This also resulted in the Chuyun Empire being quite chaotic. Sparing and all-out fights were undoubtedly much more frequent compared to the Jioma Empire. Moreover, perhaps it was because the poison within one's body might attack one's heart at any moment, but the people within the Chuyun Empire were a little more crazy when it came to training. This was because everyone knew that if they did not reach the Do Huang class, the poison Do Qi that they practiced would sooner or later consume this life of theirs. With the pressure from death, the training atmosphere in the Chuyun Empire was indeed crazy. It may be the reason why the experts hidden among the people of the Chuyun Empire were many times more than that within the Jioma Empire. These experts would seldom join any major factions. Instead, they would fight alone and go all out to train, hoping that they could completely escape the poison erosion within their bodies. On the whole, this empire was clearly more chaotic and dangerous than the Jioma Empire. Of course, Such a degree of chaos was undoubtedly much weaker when compared to the Black Corner region, which was without laws. After all, this place had the Chuyun Empire imperial family, and that enormous being known as the poison sect governing it. Xiao Yan and the other two used nearly 4 days before they entered the middle region of the Chuyun Empire, after traveling a long distance. Xiao Yan's group stood on a mountain peak outside of the Sky Poison City. The travel-weary group heaved a long sigh of relief. The way the three dressed had changed a little. Medusa had wore a doping on her head. Her outstanding appearance had attracted quite a lot of trouble during this journey of theirs. Medusa naturally did not show even the slightest mercy to these fellows with ill intent. However, those troublesome flies continued to arrive. In the end, she could only helplessly use a doping to hide her face even with the degree of viciousness in her heart. Their travels had become much smoother once she did this. Xiao Yan's eyes slowly swept over the surroundings of the Sky Poison City, while he thought in this manner in his heart. He let out a deep breath and gradually clenched his fist. A cold glint surfaced in his dark black eyes. That fellow from the Hall of Souls, just you wait. A blurry black figure finally appeared in their sight around half an hour after Xiao Yan's 3-men group waited on the mountain peak. Finally, it flashed a couple of times and appeared in the air above this mountain peak. Poison Sect had obviously prepared against the 10,000 Scorpion Gate since long before. Hence, on the second day after Xiao Yan's 3-men group arrived at the Sky Poison City, this enormous machine known as the Poison Sect began to activate. A countless number of people were dispatched in a scattered manner, and began to quietly gather around the Sky Scorpion mountain range. In merely 3 days, they had completely sealed off this place in secret. Although this large-scale movement of the Poison Sect might be able to be hidden from the people outside, it was obviously not possible to remain hidden from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate, which possessed quite a number of spies. Hence, the 10,000 Scorpion Gate sensed it when the Poison Sect people began to gradually appear around the Sky Scorpion mountain range. The conflict between the two factions had thus entered its most intense point. There were over 100 killings that began to appear in the Sky Scorpion mountain range almost every day. Both parties suffered losses in these various conflicts. It was still all right at the beginning, with only some low-level people fighting with one another when they occasionally met. However, when the experts from the Poison Sect arrived, the experts from both parties began to exchange blows. In a short while, the Sky Scorpion mountain range, which had been quite quiet, descended into a liveliness that it had never witnessed before. The little fairy doctor led the top experts from the sect and appeared at the camp of the Poison Sect on the Sky Scorpion mountain range, during these increasingly heated conflicts between both parties. This campsite that the Poison Sect had chosen was not far from the headquarters of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. They were merely separated by a bottomless gorge. The walls of the mountains were covered by countless numbers of colorful poisonous scorpions. The fog that lingered over the mountains withered unceasingly and emitted a slight fishy smell. The campsite was tightly guarded by a countless number of gazes crossing each other even in the sky. If Xiao Yan's 3-men group had not followed the little fairy doctor all the way, it was likely that it would have been difficult for them to successfully enter this place by just relying on the strength of the 3 of them. With the exception of Zi Yang, the appearances of Xiao Yang and Medusa had been slightly changed. After all, these 2 people had left behind quite a deep impression on some of the experts in the Poison Sect in the last big battle. It was likely that they would invite some unnecessary trouble if they were to reveal their true faces. Changing one's appearance was not rare within the Chuyun Empire. Poison masters always loved to act in unorthodox ways and would create all sorts of strange, unique items. A tool known as the mysterious beast skin was able to quietly make some changes to a person's appearance. Of course, one's appearance would naturally recover to its normal form once this thing was removed. However, this mysterious beast skin was differentiated between a high and low grade. There was a large difference in the reality changes that were created between the two. However, with the little fairy doctor's position in the Chuyun Empire, she naturally provided the best Mysteria beast skin to Xiao Yang and Medusa. In this way, it was likely that very few people would be able to identify them. Sect leader, who are these few people? An old man, who was standing at the leader's spot of everyone, suddenly swept his gaze over Xiao Yang's 3-man group behind little fairy doctor. He immediately frowned as he inquired. This old man clearly held a high position within the poison sect. His pale green robe was eye-catching. His face had a black centipede drawn on it. This, along with the movement of his wrinkles on his face, caused the centipede to slowly wiggle like it was alive, sending out a dark, cold, evil aura to others. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over him a couple of times. The little fairy doctor had told him about some matters of the poison sect along the way. They suddenly flashed across his heart when he saw the dark black centipede on his face. Due to the rapid development of the poison sect, it was not as united as Xiao Yan had imagined. There was a mixture of many factions within it. This old man, who had a centipede on his face, was called Wu Waiye. His strength was around the peak of the Do Huang class. He was originally the leader of the Centipede Sky Mansion, from the Chu Yun Empire. However, he eventually took the initiative to surrender to the expanding poison sect. Finally, he became a powerful elder within the sect. He had roped in quite a number of experts from the sect, and was able to oppose some of the little fairy doctor's orders at times. When the Chu Yun Empire withdrew back then, the greatest opposition in the sect came from this old man. Some of the experts from the poison sect also threw their gazes toward Xiao Yan's three-man group after hearing Wu Waiye's question. Most of their eyes paused on Zi Yang's body. They felt an incredulous feeling that such a jade carving like little girl had come with such a dangerous person. They are all friends that we have invited over. Why? Is there any problem, Elder Wu? The little fairy doctor seemed to have already anticipated that Wu Waiye would pose this question. She did not even raise her eyes, as she replied with an indifferent voice. Xiao Yan's gaze drifted toward Wu Waiye without leaving a trace when his group was walking past the latter. This old fellow actually dared to doubt little fairy doctor's words in front of so many people. It seemed that things were indeed as the latter had said. His strength within the poison sect was quite great. I must remind little fairy doctor to be cautious of this old fellow. Although the poison sect is strong, its interior is far too unstable. This old fellow might be the greatest instability. This thought flashed across Xiao Yan's heart as he walked into the spacious tent. Wu Waiye and the others outside the tent smiled and watched the back of Xiao Yan's three-men group as they entered the tent. A gloominess flashed in their eyes without leaving any trace only after they had entered the tent. This gloominess swiftly disappeared. They lifted their heads, chatted and smiled with the other experts from the poison sect before entering the tent. Everyone separated and sat down within the tent. Xiao Yan's group randomly sat beside little fairy doctor. Below them was the group of experts from the poison sect. How is the current situation on the Sky Scorpion mountain range? The little fairy doctor did not say any unnecessary things after sitting down. She started on the main topic and inquired in a deep voice. Sect leader, according to my observations during this period of time, it seems that the other party was aware ahead of time that our poison sect committed to a little larger operation. The elite members of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate would be withdrawn from the encircled area and leave behind some unimportant low-level members. Moreover, as long as there was a weakness in the defensive line of our poison sect, it would immediately suffer a large attack by the other party, resulting in us suffering quite the losses. Wu Waiye's face was somewhat ugly as he spoke in a deep voice. According to a guess by this old me, it is likely that there is a traitor from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate within our poison sect. The interior of the tent was immediately in an uproar when these words were uttered. All the experts from the poison sect looked in all directions. There was a faint amount of caution in the eyes that they used to look at their companions. With the flow of time, the night sky gradually covered the entire mountain range. The night was the time when poisonous things prevailed. A slight shuffling sound repeatedly appeared around the entire mountain range. Borrowing some weak light, one would be able to see colorful poisonous snakes and scorpions climbing all over the place in the grass and in the trees. The tongue of the snakes extended in a ferocious manner. However, it was fortunate that a thick layer of powder had already been scattered over the surroundings of the campsite. Some small poisonous objects did not dare to move nearer in the face of this kind of nose-piercing stench. Moreover, there were experts from the poison sect guarding around the place. Having been dealing with poison for their entire lives, it was natural that these people were extremely used to handling such things. The campsite at night appeared exceptionally calm. Bonfires burned fiercely and would occasionally erupt into thunderbolt claps. A certain spot in the quiet campsite suddenly moved, and a tiny black figure swiftly rushed out. After which, it was just like an ordinary bird that swiftly rushed toward the dark forest. The black centipede quietly rushed through the sky before finally turning its body. It actually flew toward the 10,000 Scorpion Mountain in the direction of the gorge. Just as that centipede was about to fly over the gorge, a black figure strangely appeared in mid-air. The figure caught the former in his hand. Of course, the figure had naturally used Do Chi to wrap his hand when faced with such a dirty thing. The black centipede that was suddenly captured immediately began to struggle. The interior of its body also faintly emitted a repulsive stench. A finger was flicked and it struck the centipede's head, shaking it until it fainted. The black figure's indifferent eyes drifted over it before his finger suddenly used some force and shattered the body of this centipede. A small paper note that was rolled into a cylinder shape quietly appeared as green blood flowed out. A jade-green flame rose from the figure's hand and vaporized all the green-colored blood. The flame's glow was imprinted on that somewhat ordinary face. It was surprisingly Xiao Yan, who had used the mysterious beast skin to hide his original appearance. Xiao Yan tossed the corpse of that centipede into the gorge and slowly pulled open the paper scroll. He could see a couple of distorted words that appeared in his eyes. Everything is prepared. Xiao Yan's eyes were indifferent as he observed the people from the 10,000 Scorpion sect, who had suddenly appeared in the dense forest, as they threw bags of poison fog toward him. He flicked his finger and an invisible fluctuation appeared. The 10+ fierce-looking people from the 10,000 Scorpion gate immediately burst into clusters of flame out of the blue. The poison fog also swiftly disappeared, when it was still around 10 feet from Xiao Yan. The eyes of the 100+ people from the poison sect behind Xiao Yan revealed some shock when they saw this strange act. Their hearts quietly muttered that this person was indeed worthy of being a helper that the sect leader had invited. His strength was really not weak. Thank you, Mr. Yang, for your help. The middle-aged leader cupped his hand toward Xiao Yang. After which, he did not dare to delay any longer. He waved his hand and led a large group of people over to the mountain top like a pack of hornets. Xiao Yang's eyes sent off these people from the poison sect as they disappeared into the forest. He randomly flicked his finger, and a thread of hot wind incinerated the poison scorpion that had pounced over from behind him. After which, he turned his head and laughed. What are the other places like? The space was slightly distorted at the spot where Xiao Yang's eyes rested. Medusa's figure slowly appeared. She faintly spoke, the experts from the poison sect outnumber that of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. There are also experts lending a hand at almost every location. Hence, their attacks are quite fast. They have already reached halfway up the mountain. Perhaps, they would be able to reach the area outside of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate a short while later. That chief of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate, Xie Shan, that Xie Yang, and that expert from the Hall of Souls have not yet appeared to intervene. As long as they are still around, the 10,000 Scorpion Gate will not be defeated. There is still a soul-stirring great battle today. Xiao Yang laughed. You should try your best to hide your aura. Don't allow anyone to discover your true strength. Wait until a crucial moment before appearing. Only then will you be able to achieve a deterrent effect. Yes. That's right, where is Zi Yang? Xiao Yang's eyes swept around as he frowned and asked. She led a unit of the poison sect, and charged right at the front. It is likely that her area will be the first to reach the 10,000 Scorpion Gate other than the little fairy doctors group. Medusa helplessly replied. She was really speechless when it came to that little girl. Leave her be. As long as there is no elite Do Huangs from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate intervening, it is likely that she will not be in danger. We should also increase our speed. Xiao Yang shook his head. His body moved as he heard the killing cries that spread over the entire mountain. He penetrated through the forest. He flapped his fire wings and rushed toward the mountain peak. Medusa also used Do Chi to agglomerate a pair of Do Chi wings on her back and followed close behind. The sky above the 10,000 Scorpion Mountain would occasionally experience an intense battle. However, the experts from the two parties did not feel attracted to fighting. Once they discovered that the situation was not right, they would immediately flee toward their side's direction. Hence, the sky might appear to be exciting and chaotic from the fights, but no major losses had been suffered yet. Xiao Yan and Medusa rose straight up. A moment later, they arrived at a spot close to the peak of the mountain. Their eyes swept down from above, only to see the towering mountain peak penetrated into the clouds. The mountain peak appeared as though an axe had cut half of the sky. There was an incomparably large faction that stood on it. A dense green fog spread over the sky above the sect. The poison fog withered and covered the entire faction. The little fairy doctor floated in the sky as her eyes swept over the green poison fog that was scattered over the place. Her indifferent voice also resounded slowly over the mountain top. Xiao Yan, do you think that you can rely on this poison cloud formation to block the attacks of my poison sect? The sect leader of the poison sect really lives up to her name. Your haughtiness is quite great. A loud laugh was emitted from the poison fog when the little fairy doctor's voice sounded. The poison fog immediately churned and numerous human figures flashed out from it. Finally, they stopped in the sky in an orderly manner. Their eyes were ice cold as they glared at the expert from the poison sect not far away. Xiao Yan's eyes swept around when he saw these experts from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate appearing. Some surprise flashed across his eyes. It was unexpected that the overall strength of these experts was not much weaker than the poison sect. It seemed that the 10,000 Scorpion sect really kept a low profile when they did things. The big battle today might be somewhat dangerous. The leader of the experts of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate was a middle-aged man who displayed a dark, cold expression along with a set of Chinese robes. From the respectful manner in which those surrounding experts from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate were looking at him, it was likely that he was the person who had spoken earlier. The chief of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate, Xiao Yan. There were 5 old men behind Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan's gaze paused for a moment on their bodies. These 5 people also possessed the strength of the Do Huang class, but 3 of them seemed to have just broken through a short while ago. Therefore, some of the aura within their bodies was seeping out. The group of people who were further behind were the expert Do Wangs from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. Based on a rough estimation, there were likely at least dozens of them. Placing such a lineup here did indeed possess a deterrent effect. Little fairy doctor glanced at the Xiao Yan. Her voice was as calm as water as she spoke. Where is Xiao Yang? Call out that old fellow too. Otherwise, your 10,000 Scorpion Gate will be swallowed by my poison sect today. Sky Poison Woman. We have not seen each other for a short year, but you are becoming more arrogant. My 10,000 Scorpion Gate cannot be compared with those ordinary factions. Aren't you afraid of being choked to death by swallowing us? The middle-aged man, who was the chief of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate, Xiao Yan, quietly laughed. Moreover, old Xie is an expert renowned in the Chuyun Empire for a long time. You, as a member of the younger generation, are perhaps still lacking qualification if you want to challenge him. Xiao Yan's face changed a little when he saw that the little fairy doctor attacked at the first disagreement. Powerful Do Qi suddenly surged out. The 5 elite Do Huangs behind let out an orderly furious cry. Their hands were placed on Xiao Yan's shoulders and the Do Qi within their bodies poured into the latter like floodwater. Xiao Yan's face became a lot redder after receiving the pouring of such a large amount of Do Qi. A thought moved through his mind and both of his hands ruthlessly moved forward. A majestic Do Qi pillar that was agglomerated from the strength of 6 people suddenly shot out, before colliding with that grey Do Qi pillar. A earth-shaking explosion erupted that blocked the little fairy doctor's attack. Not bad, you are actually able to receive 1 blow from this ancestor, Do Zong. Looks like your 10,000 Scorpion Gate has put in quite a lot of effort in order to deal with me. The little fairy doctor indifferently watched the Do Qi ripple from the annihilation. She did not even raise her eyes. Her voice also contained a little ridicule. Xiao Yan coldly laughed. However, he did not dare to slight her in his heart. Too much Do Qi had flowed into his body earlier, causing his veins to feel a swelling pain. If this continued a couple more times, it was likely that he would die from his veins bursting apart. After all, they were not like the 3 Mulan elders who had a special Qi method to merge their strength. However, this ancestor, Do Zong, has also said today that if Xiao Yang does not come out, your 10,000 Scorpion Gate will have difficulty escaping this calamity. The little fairy doctor's eyes suddenly turned cold as the seal on her hand suddenly changed, 1,000 mysterious poison fountain. The cold cry had just sounded when countless amounts of thick grey light rays surged from little fairy doctor's body. They immediately shot toward Xiao Yan's group from all directions. The thick grey light rays shined through the sky. Its intense corrosiveness left behind many scars in the sky that were visible to the naked eye. The expression of Xiao Yan sank upon seeing this attack by little fairy doctor, which possessed extraordinary force. Elite Dozong was indeed not someone whom they could contend with. The energy that was contained in each of this grey glows would likely be sufficient to cause the death of an expert Dozong. Under the continuous thick grey Do-Chi explosion, the light curtain began to form waves of ripples. However, it ultimately stood tenacious and did not show any signs of shattering. The explosions continued for a while before they gradually slowed until they completely disappeared. That enormous light curtain slowly turned pale when the grey Do-Chi disappeared before revealing a slightly hunched white-haired old man behind. The old man was wearing ordinary clothes and an expressionless face with turbid eyes that seemed to contain a glint that caused one's heart to feel a chill. His hand was holding a dark black walking stick. The walking stick had an exceptionally savage-looking scorpion head, and a little purple glow that was difficult to notice flashed from the head of the scorpion. The old man stood in empty air. The aura all over his body was completely pulled into it, and not even a little of it seeped out. At a glance, he appeared just like an ordinary old man. However, the experts from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate hurriedly greeted him respectfully after he appeared. The expressions of the experts from the poison sect also gradually became solemn. Even the little fairy doctor did not dare to underestimate this person, who possessed a great reputation within the Chuyun Empire many years ago. This fellow should be the elite Dozong from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. Xiao Yang, right? Xiao Yang looked at the old man, who had suddenly appeared. His heart turned cold as he suddenly spoke, yes. Medusa also slightly nodded. Some solemnness appeared in her eyes. It is unexpected that this old fellow is actually able to withdraw his aura to such an extent. It seems that he has not wasted these years. According to my estimation, it is likely that this fellow has already reached the peak of a 4-star Dozong. If he is lucky, he might even be able to break through to a 5-star Dozong. Medusa voiced her opinion. The strongest person that Xiao Yang had met in all these years was likely that protector, Wu, after he had swallowed Yunshan's soul. The next was Yao Lao, who had only recovered his spiritual strength. After that it was Medusa and the little fairy doctor. Now, he might perhaps have to add another to that list, Xiao Yang. After one's strength reached the Dozong class, the increase of a single level was unusually difficult. The difference between the strength of each level also increased. Of course, the current Xiao Yang was not very certain about this. He was only striving to make it through the Do Huang class at this moment. Although he could fight with an elite Dozong if he used all his strength, the price that he needed to pay was too great. From this, one could tell just how powerful an elite Dozong was. I should begin searching for a new heavenly flame to raise my strength after this matter is over. Otherwise, I will only be able to fight with an elite Dozong after using all of my strength. This won't do. Xiao Yang quietly nodded as this thought flashed across his heart. If he wanted to rescue Yao Lao and his father, as well as successfully be together with Zun he would need an extremely powerful strength. The current him obviously did not possess this. Of course, it was unusually difficult if an ordinary person wanted to raise his or her level. However, it was different for Xiao Yang. Being in possession of the flame mantra, his strength would soar greatly as long as he could find a new heavenly flame and swallow it. Reaching the Dozong class was within reach. Although this involved extremely great danger, what kind of training was completely smooth and safe? Xiao Yang slowly inhaled a deep breath of air. His heart became anxious when he thought of raising his strength. He also possessed an initial plan about where he ought to travel in the future. A young person really have sharp edges. Back then, when the old me was dominating the Chuyun Empire, you were just playing with mud in some unknown corner. Even though the new wave has pushed the old wave, this old me has at the very least not been pushed to death. Xiao Yang's turbid eyes swept over little fairy doctor, as he spoke with a faint voice. In the battle back then, I really did not expect you to be able to eliminate most of the factions within the Chuyun Empire. However, this is also good. With this poison sect, I can save time and effort in the future. As long as I finish you off, this poison sect will naturally be changed to the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. We'll just have to see if you have the strength to swallow my poison sect. A cold glint flashed across Little Fairy Doctor's eyes as she coldly cried out, Poison Sect 5 Elders, take formation. Leave Xiao Yan to me. While the Little Fairy Doctor was frowning a little, a cold glint suddenly flashed across the eyes of Wu Wei behind her. His hand seal changed and the 5 people's aura gathered together. 5 powerful forces shot out. However, this attack did not strike at the people from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. Instead, they shot toward the Little Fairy Doctor, who had her back facing them. This sudden change was beyond everyone's expectations. Even the Little Fairy Doctor was stagnant for a moment. However, it was this stagnation that allowed the 5 attacks in close proximity to suddenly reach her. A black figure suddenly and strangely appeared behind the Little Fairy Doctor's back the instant the attack was about to strike. A hot jade-green flame abruptly surged out and violently collided with the attack. Bang! Powerful Do Chi suddenly exploded and a majestic energy ripple surged out. It is unexpected that there is not one traitor, but 5 of them. This dog biting its owner is really ruthless. The black figure slowly appeared. His legs were shaken until they took a step back. After which, he immediately let out a strange laugh. A cold glint flashed in the Little Fairy Doctor's greyish-purple eyes. She suddenly moved her delicate hand and the space in front suddenly became distorted. The speed of Wu Wei and the 4 others was clearly reduced after they passed through it. When their bodies paused for a moment, 5 sharp forces suddenly shot over from behind them. The strength that the forces contained caused even the air to ripple slightly. It seemed that Little Fairy Doctor was quite furious at the betrayal of Wu Wei's 5-man group. The faces of Wu Wei and the 4 others changed slightly as they felt the wind rushing over from behind them. They did not expect the Little Fairy Doctor to act so ruthlessly. From the force, it was obvious that she intended to kill the 5 of them on the spot. Xiao Yan let out a cold snort just before the 5 winds were about to strike. His body shook and he appeared behind the 5 of them. With a violent wave of his walking stick, 5 stinky poison glows were spat out from the scorpion head on the walking stick. After which, they shot toward the 5 forces. The fierce energy violently collided in the empty air, and waves of sounds erupted. A faint smoke rose from the spot of the collision. The smoke spread, and 2 thick greyish lights shot out from it in a lightning-like manner. They passed by Xiao Yang and finally caught up with 2 elders, who had renegaded earlier, before penetrating through their backs. Wu Wei's eyes shrank when he heard this. His eyes were sinister as he looked at Xiao Yang and said, So the messenger centipede from last night was intercepted by you. Rat, who exactly are you? I advise you to not get involved with the matters of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate and the Poison Sect. Otherwise, you will only invite trouble sooner or later. Xiao Yang smiled and ignored his meaningless threat. He turned his head to Little Fairy Doctor. It looks like the situation is quite bad. This 10,000 Scorpion Gate already possessed some plans for your poison sect since long ago. Even if your poison sect did not act today, the 10,000 Scorpion Gate would come looking for you. A mountain cannot contain 2 tigers. The 10,000 Scorpion Gate naturally wants to become the overlord of the Chuyun Empire as well. In the past, they had kept an extremely low profile, because that old fellow was undertaking a retreat. Now that he has come out, the situation is completely different. The Little Fairy Doctor's eyes contained some mockery, as she looked at Xiao Yang. She coldly laughed, however. So what if you have snatched 5 pieces of trash over? It is as easy as flipping a hand if this ancestor, Dozong, wants to kill them. Don't tell me that you are actually able to rely on them. Currently, the number of elite Do Huangs from your poison sect is inferior to our 10,000 Scorpion Gate. Old Xia will naturally deal with you. Don't tell me that you will actually be able to intervene. Once the big battle between you and Old Xia is over, the experts from the poison sect will have been completely eliminated. Xia Shan laughed in a dark voice. Since you have such confidence in your 10,000 Scorpion Gate, you can come and give it a try. The Little Fairy Doctor also let out a cold laugh. Do Chi circulated like floodwater within her body and a powerful aura, which caused the space to fluctuate, suddenly surged out. We had a hurried exchange the last time, and did not manage to determine a victor. Today, Allow this old me to really give it a try, and see just what qualifications a member of the younger generation, like you, has in order to dominate the Chuyun Empire. A cold glint flashed in Xiao Yan's eyes as he sensed the powerful aura. His walking stick heavily slammed on the empty ground, and his originally hunched back began to slowly straighten. An aura that was not much weaker than the little fairy doctor seeped out as he raised his hunched back. Finally, it completely suppressed little fairy doctor's spreading aura. The little fairy doctor's face was ice cold. She did not waste her breath as she moved her delicate hand. Her fingernails suddenly grew by half a foot, and they became like 10 sharp short swords. Her fingernails were covered with a grayish-purple color. At a glance, one immediately knew that they contained a potent poison. The grayish-purple fingernails randomly flew through the air. One could hear a slight kai-kai sound and see that the air cracked apart and formed a slit under the sky. This was enough to tell how sharp they were. All of you should be careful. The little fairy doctor turned her head and spoke to Xiao Yan in a deep voice. After which, she moved her body and it turned into a blurry black line that shot at Xiao Yan. At this moment, a majestic Do Chi suddenly appeared in the sky. That unusual pressure caused quite a number of weaker individuals to feel their breathing become hurried. Two elite Do Zongs collided like comets in front of the countless number of gazes below. The energy ripple that erupted at that moment caused even the air to intensely fluctuate. A cold glint also flashed in Xie Shan's eyes as he watched the little fairy doctor and Xiao Yang swiftly fight until it just became a cluster of movements. His eyes were malicious as he glanced back at the experts from the poison sect on the other side. He waved his hand. Everyone from the 10,000 Scorpion Gate, listen up, charge. The experts of the 10,000 Scorpion Gate immediately cried out in unison upon hearing Xie Shan's order. Do Chi immediately surged out like a fountain. Numerous figures carried some aura and a fishy stench as they charged at the poison sect camp in a lightning-like manner. The experts from the poison sect also emitted numerous furious cries in the face of this large-scale counterattack by the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. Their bodies rushed forward and violently clashed with the other party's large army. The sky immediately became lively following the beginning of this chaotic battle. Explosions sounded repeatedly and numerous colors of Do Chi pillars swept over the sky, shooting in all directions. The large army from the poison sect attacked the spot where the 10,000 Scorpion Gate was located. However, they ended up facing this intense counterattack by the 10,000 Scorpion Gate. Killing cries suddenly began to soar to the sky. Bang! Xiao Yang randomly threw a palm and shook an elite Do Wang that was launching a sneak attack until he spat out blood and retreated. Two human figures suddenly flashed and appeared in front of him. It was surprisingly that Wu Yue and another elder who had betrayed them earlier. At this moment, the gazes that these two people used to look at Xiao Yang were quite vicious. Clearly, they were extremely furious at Xiao Yang having blocked their sneak attack earlier. A hot jade-green Do Chi slowly seeped out of Xiao Yang's body. His gaze swept over the battles occurring all over the place. He knit his brows slightly upon the discovery that the poison sect had obviously ended up at a disadvantage. It seemed that he needed to quickly finish these two old fellows. Xiao Yang ceased hesitating as this thought flashed across his heart. His hand seal also suddenly moved. Skyfire 3 mysterious change. A soft cry sounded in Xiao Yang's heart, and the glazed fire lotus flame within his body immediately followed a mysterious vein pathway as it swiftly circulated. A wild and violent strength also slowly seemed out, causing the interior of Xiao Yang's body to be filled with an incomparable surging strength. Be careful. This fellow should have used some secret technique that raised his strength earlier. We only need to delay him. Once he is weakened, it will be only too easy to take his life. Wu Yue was indeed an experienced person. He immediately managed to see the reason why Xiao Yang's strength soared at a glance before uttering with a deep voice. The 4-star expert Do Huang nodded. His gaze ruthlessly cut through Xiao Yang's body. Xiao Yang's eyes indifferently swept over the two of them. Having decided to swiftly end the battle in his heart, Xiao Yang no longer delayed his movements. A silver glow suddenly surged on his feet. His body immediately shook, and an afterimage remained in the spot. His body had already leaped by Wu Yue without any warning and appeared in front of that 4-star Do Huang. Shock appeared past the heart of the 4-star Do Huang when Xiao Yang suddenly appeared in front of him. Do Qi surged wildly in his body. After which, a powerful Do Qi pillar shot out of his hand and rushed toward Xiao Yang. Jade-green flame suddenly rose on Xiao Yang's body, and refined the Do Qi pillar, in a forceful manner. Even by just relying on the marvel of the flame mantra, he would not be much weaker than a 4-star Do Huang. Moreover, he was currently using the Sky Fire 3 mysterious change. His strength had already far exceeded that of a 4-star Do Huang. How could the other party's attack hurt him at all? Xiao Yang refined the Do Qi pillar in an instant. His body suddenly leaned forward and prepared to collide with the elder's chest. His waist was twisted after that, and all of his strength was gathered into his arm. He immediately swung forward and violently smashed the latter's chest. Powerful force seeped out. The face of that elder turned white. A soft muffled moan was emitted from his throat. Clearly, this sudden and violent close-range attack by Xiao Yang caused him to suffer some injuries after failing to react in time. Besides feeling an anger in his heart, that elder flapped the Do Qi wings on his back and hurriedly retreated. However, he had yet to pull back for a couple of meters when Xiao Yang quickly followed like maggot in tarsal bones. The corner of the latter's mouth was lifted into a dense arc as his fist carried the sharp sound of rushing wind. It tore through the air and violently smashed into the elder's chest, octane blast. A cold cry resounded in Xiao Yang's heart the moment his fist struck the other party. The frightening hidden force that was sequestered away within the bones of his fist immediately surged out in all directions. Finally, it was transferred to the elder's body amid the shocked face of that elder. It suddenly exploded an instant later. This truly fatal attack caused a mouthful of fresh bright red blood to be spat out from the elder's mouth. However, the fresh blood had just left his mouth when it transformed into a blood arrow that shot toward Xiao Yang's body. No wonder he was invited by the Sky Poison Woman. He is indeed not mediocre. Xiao Yang killing a Do Huang within a few short exchanges was seen by the experts from both parties, who were all fighting within that chaotic battleground. Shock immediately surfaced in everyone's eyes. A joy quickly appeared in the hearts of those from the Poison sect. A person that was invited by the sect leader was indeed extraordinary. At this moment, the doubt that the experts from the Poison sect felt for Xiao Yang's group in their hearts completely disappeared. The strength that Xiao Yang had displayed was enough to allow his group to be a VIP within the Poison sect. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.